Hey, what's up everybody? Zaya from 48 Detailing, and welcome again to our Corvette C3 series. Thank you again for joining. If you haven't watched our first video of the series, make sure to check out our How to Wash a Classic Car video. Link is in the description below, where we go in detail how to wash a classic vehicle with our waterless and rinseless wash system efficiently and safely. Now in today's video, what we're going to be talking about is how to take care of chips and nicks on your paint, also how to repair badly repaired chips, and then we're going to go ahead and go over some stainless steel aluminum polishing with the side pipes and the Krager rims that we have on the vehicle. So with all that in mind, let's go ahead and jump into a little bit of chip repair. We're going to do that first because I got to wait for the side pipes to cool down because I just drove this into the shop a few moments ago. It would be no bueno if I tried polishing them right now. So when it comes to chip repair, guys, same thing, set expectations. There are different levels to chip repair, all right? You could spend a full day on repairing just one single chip because remember, you gotta fill it in. You got to wait for that paint to cure, and then you got to fill it in again and fill it in again until you get it level, and then you got to put your clear coat on top, and then you got to wait for that to cure, and then you got to go ahead and sand it down, and you get the idea, right? So again, set expectations. I'm going to be driving this thing. I've had it for a little over 4 weeks now, and I've already put about 600 miles on the car. And we have a whole season of car shows and events that this car is booked in, along with our C8 Corvette and our BMW Z4. This is going to be a driver's car. So I'm taking consideration that more chips will happen again in the future. And the reason why I'm not, you're probably asking, why don't you just put paint protection film on and call it a day? Well, it's a repaint. There's a lot of risk involved with putting paint protection film on a vehicle that's been repainted, especially a fiberglass vehicle. All right, there's always a massive potential of peeling up paint. So with that in mind, for me personally, and my professional recommendation for individuals with classic cars is to correct it, do some chip repair, get the paint dialed in with some paint correction, and then go ahead and apply a ceramic coating. And with a ceramic coating, you're honestly going to get better overall aesthetics, looks, gloss, and shine than you would with paint protection film. Because with a front end this large, you will have seam lines involved with a paint protection film application. So generally speaking, 9 out of 10 times, if it is a classic car, whether it's original or a repaint, I do always recommend to steer away from the paint protection film and steer towards just paint correction and a ceramic coating, which is exactly what we're going to do throughout the series with this Corvette C3. All right? So chip repair, what are you going to need? Number one, you're going to need a couple syringes. All right, this is going to be your vessel essentially to get the paint from this onto your vehicle without making it look nasty and blotchy. All right, remember in the beginning of the video where I mentioned we're going to be repairing some previous chip repair? Well, I'm going to show you exactly what blotchy looks like because this Corvette has it for sure, and how to repair that and make it look a little bit better as well. But essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to take these syringes, we're going to fill it up with our paint, and then we're going to gently fill in the chip on the paint until we get it to as close level as possible. So with that in mind, let me show you how we fill up these syringes with paint and jump straight into it. So I know the cart's a little bit crowded, but this is essentially everything that you're going to need. Like I mentioned, we got our syringes, we have our paints, we have a little bit of a spotlight, polishers, and then also some sanding paper to go ahead and take care of the improperly repaired chips across the vehicle, all right? So when it comes to the actual paint you're gonna use, you got a few options on the market. The most common and most popular is something like this. This is what we call a paint repair pen. You can find this at your local dealership. You can find it at AutoZone, O'Reilly's, all those places. Okay? So today we're actually gonna use this right over here. It's the closest match I was able to find to the yellow that we have on the C3. I'm gonna go ahead and shake this up real quick. Just wanna make sure you shake it up pretty good. Just a couple seconds. Especially if you have a lot of metallic flake or a pearlescent paint, you wanna make sure you shake it up really good. I'm gonna go ahead and take my syringe. I'm gonna pop it open just like that, okay? I'm gonna grab my paint real quick. I'm gonna take just a dab into the syringe, maybe 1 or 2, just depending on how many chips that you need to fill in. Now you don't want to put too much because a little goes a very, very long way. And I think that's the biggest mistake that a lot of people make, is that they feel as if they got to put a big blob of paint in there, and then it ends up looking like a smear and a blob of paint on the chip repair area. So I'll show you an example of that in a second, okay? And then we're just going to put that top of the syringe and just slowly push it in, just like that, until we get it to the bottom, all right? Now this is set to go. I always like keeping a second or a third just in case if I'm spending a little bit more time on the chip repair, because the paint does start to dry out after a few minutes and it becomes kind of tacky and a little bit more difficult to use during the repair process, okay? Besides that, I got a bottle of isopropyl alcohol. I got a couple of microfiber towels to clean and prep the area for a proper bond with a chip repair. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. Put a light spray of IPA on there, and then go ahead and do a nice rub just to make sure there's no dirt, grime, or oils in or around the chip, okay? So your paint bonds properly. Then what we're gonna do, we got our syringe over here with our paint. Now I'm gonna put a little bit of pressure on top of that syringe just to see a little bit of paint come through. Just like that. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's a small little bubble of paint right on top. And starting from the top of the chip, I'm just going to apply that to the area and start spreading it along the edges and then filling the chip in, nice and gentle. Okay? You just want to be nice and gentle with it, and you don't want to put too much pressure. Just a light amount of pressure. If you need a little bit more paint, just a light amount of pressure, and that's all you're going to need. And sometimes if you lean in, you can get a better view of what's going on and how much paint you need. Especially if you got bad eyes like me. It's always good to get closer just to see what's going on. But you can see I'm just following the edges and filling in the inside of the chip little by little. I'm essentially trying to get it level to the surrounding paint. Not completely, because remember, after this cures and dries, we're going to put a light layer of clear on top, clear coat, to make sure to seal it in. But I want to make sure I'm getting complete coverage where that white fiberglass underneath is not showing through. See, I put a little bit too much right there. A little bit too much pressure. Still might be able to save it. Just spread out what I currently have in there. That's pretty much it. You apply your first layer, you let it cure. It might take about 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes even 2 depending on your climate and humidity, but little by little we're gonna fill that in until we're pretty satisfied with the level, and then we go ahead and apply a little bit of clear coat on top to lock it in. Then we have to sand it down, compound it, polish it out, all right? But let me give you an example of a bad chip repair. Take a look at that nasty right there. I mean, I can probably pick that off with a fingernail if I wanted to. There's one right there. There's one right here as well. You can see that, I don't know, got brushed on essentially. And again, this paint job is not perfect. You see a little bit of a crack in the paint right there and a couple other areas. So, but of course, the front clip is going to have the most chips on there. And those are the things that we're going to go ahead and touch up to the best of our ability today. All right, guys, now time to deal with somebody else's mistake. We got this one and we got this one over here. These are the 2 biggest eyesores. There are a couple other little ones here and there that I'm not really too concerned of because they're all the way here at the bottom and you can't really see them. So I'm just going to take care of these 2 big ones over here, try to get them to look a little bit better, okay? If I do notice any other chips I can touch up by filling them in, I'll make sure to do so. But generally speaking, these are the 2 biggest eyesores on the front clip over here, okay? So you can see someone put way too much paint. They put more paint around the chip than they did inside the chip, all right? And I'll bring you up close and personal as we're starting to work on them, but I wanna go over what you're gonna need for a process like this. So right over here, we have a little bit of a KXK sanding block. Now, these are all handmade. You can find these online from really, really experienced paint correction technicians in the industry. They came up with this idea for the KXK sanding block in different sizes and different hardness and softness. But this is what I like to use for little tiny jobs like this. Very precise, so I'm not sanding off too much paint or anything around the areas that I want to work on. From there, you're going to need your sandpaper. I like using these little tiny circle ones. They're about 3-inch size pads for sanders and things of that nature, dedicated for car paint. We got Kovacs and Trizac pads over here. So we'll start off with the heaviest grit, which is going to be 800. Okay, well, let's see where 800 is. There's your 800 right there. And then you move on to 1,000. Then you move on to 2,000. 1,500, excuse me, and then you move on to 2,000. So we're going to work it in stages. The lower the number when it comes to sanding paper or sandpaper, the higher the cut will be, okay? The bigger the abrasive is going to be, so you cut through faster and more material, all right? So this is a delicate and risky process. I would not recommend this for everybody, but if you follow these steps, you should be fine. This is all really going to depend on how much pressure you're putting on the paint, how long you are sanding for, and also how much paint you are dealing with on your car. All right, guys, so that's what we're dealing with right here. So what we're going to be doing is wet sanding. I got my sanding block, I got my sanding disc, but the first thing I'm going to do is grab a nice bottle of just regular water. This is an electric bottle that I'm using. And I'm going to go ahead and spray the surface of that sandpaper, make sure to get it nice and soaked. And by the way, look at that ceramic enhancer that we have bead on top of that surface. Man, looks almost like a coating on top of there. It's pretty spectacular on how good that product is. And if you are looking for a really great spray-on sealant or coating, make sure to check it out on our website, okay? But I digress. All right, we soaked the pad. We got our block right over here. I'm just going to be using the edge of the block and also our sanding disc over here. And we got the panel nice and wet too. And I'm just going to move in 45-degree angles back and forth on the area that we're working on, okay? Again, I'm using 800 grit. It's a pretty heavy grit. And we're just trying to go ahead and get that excess paint leveled off. There you go. So we've pretty much eliminated most of that paint. I'm not going to take it any further with 800 grit because you have to remember we got multiple other stages of sanding that we have to get through, everything from 1,000 all the way up to 2,000, right? So right now I've got it pretty smooth. I'm not really going to go any more aggressive with the 800 grit. I'm going to start working my way up from here. But you could see it's actually a crack along with a chip all the way through. Like I mentioned, you don't know exactly what you're going to reveal underneath when you do this, and sometimes it's even worse than what you currently have. To be honest with you, this is not too bad. I am seeing a couple points here and there that we're exposing fiberglass underneath, but I'll go ahead and touch those up properly this time around. And then we have the main chip over here on the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and jump up to 1,500 actually. I'm going to skip 1,000. Because it is cutting through pretty good and pretty fast. I don't want to take off too much material. Go ahead and spray down my pad again. I'm going to go ahead and start sanding it down smooth again. But this time put a little bit more focus on this side over here, just because there's still a little bit more excess paint right there, okay? All right, guys, that's pretty much it. Now, the first thing you notice, it's nice and smooth again. We removed all that excess, that little squiggly line that they try to touch up within this fracture. If they knew better, they knew they can't touch up a fracture or a crack in the paint. You can touch up chips, but you can't touch up cracks necessarily like you see over here, okay? So now what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna give it a light compound, all right? I'm just trying to remove the hazing and the sanding marks that we're seeing, clear it up just so we see finally what we have to deal with. And then we're going to fill up that main chip right there and the little white portions over here that got exposed on those high points of the chip and the fracturing, okay? All right, guys, so we got our little nano polisher with a wool pad and then also a little bit of Meguiar's M100. This is a heavy cut compound, all right? That's exactly what we're going to need to go ahead and cut through these sanding marks over here. Now, I want you guys to take note. We are dealing with some edges over here. It's a very small area. That's why I'm using a nano polisher. You don't want to take a big polisher on something like this or you're going to burn through the edge of the paint. And this is a very common area that a lot of people mess up, okay? I want you guys to think about the edge of the paint like walking up and down the stairs, okay? If you're walking down the stairs and you slip and you roll your foot downward, it's not going to hurt as much as running up the stairs and jamming your shin or your foot into the stair, right? Same thing goes for edge work on paint, okay? The point where the pad is spinning, right? The pad is spinning and it's going over the edge is not going to generate as much friction as the point that is going into the edge. All right? The point going into the edge is going to build up a lot more heat, a lot more friction, and also cut through a lot faster as well. And that is the point where most people make the mistake of burning through. This especially happens on things like the haunch lines on fenders or the curvature and really high points on hoods and things like that. So you just got to be very careful with it. All right? I'm going to go ahead and just dab it real quick and start working it in. I'm just going to go at a medium speed, very light to medium pressure, nothing crazy. I'm going to focus on this area. So a little bit more speed to work in that compound. And I'm continually checking visually how we're looking. And I'm trying not to go past the edges either. Keep that in mind. I'm keeping it just on the flat area. All right, guys, and there are the final results after sanding down the area, compounding it. Got all the sanding marks out of the way, or pretty much all of them. Please do remember, we are going to do a full paint correction on this later down the line. So I'm just trying to expose what's underneath so we can go ahead and repair it today, let it cure and dry, and then we'll be ready to go next week for a full correction and ready for the coating application, okay? So now what we're going to do, we're going to do the same process to the other trip on the front clip over here, get that prepped up as well, and I'm just going to go around the front end and touch up whatever I can. All right, guys, so we're here with the side pipe exhausts. As you can see, they're nice and cool to the touch. You want to make sure you are not working on your engine bay, your exhaust, if it's super, super hot. It's going to make it super difficult to work with. You're most likely going to burn yourself, so try to avoid that to the best of your ability. So what we got here is very simple. I wanted to try something that you guys can pick up locally at Walmart, AutoZone, and that is Mother's mag and aluminum polish, all right? Generally speaking, when it comes to metal polishes, they're very, very heavy in abrasives. They cut through very quickly, and that's exactly what you need when it comes to stainless steel, aluminum, magnesium, things of that nature, okay? Again, you could pick this up from your local store for a few bucks, and that is why I picked it up. I wanted to see and try and show you results with something that's very easy to gain access to. As you can see, it's a very thick, creamy consistency. You want to make sure to go in and mix it around. If you're going to use your fingers, make sure to wear gloves. But over here, I'm just using my cleaning brush, just like that. I'm going to scoop it up, and I'm going to throw it onto this wool pad I have right over here. Spread it around to make sure it doesn't sling everywhere. You're probably going to need to use a liberal amount. I don't want to say probably, you will, especially if you're using a wool pad. It sucks up a lot of the product, just like that. All right, guys, so when you're doing this type of work, when you're working on aluminum, steel, magnesium, it's very dirty work, guys. Expect to be throwing out your pads afterwards, and you'll see what I'm talking about in just a second. Of course, you could do this by hand as well with a microfiber towel if you like, but we're going to speed up the process and hit it with a machine, okay? So I'm going to go ahead, start the machine up, medium speed. Spread the product all the way around. Get the underbody as well. I'm going to pause real quick, and you can already see after a few passes, we haven't even started working it in, how dirty and all that oxidation that the pad and the polish is lifting up already. So now we're going to start working it in. So working it section by section. see all the oxidation that we're pulling off the metal right now. And just be mindful, you will get a little bit of sling as well. You can see it's slinging onto the paint over here. You're gonna wanna make sure you clean that off real well. I'm gonna slow it down a little bit because we were getting a lot of sling. I'm gonna take care of the underside as well. And of course, I can't get all the way in here. I'm gonna do that by hand, but at least we can take care of the bulk of it with our machine. And just like that, your white pad turned black real quick. You wanna make sure you use a towel that you're gonna discard afterwards, and then go ahead and remove the excess polish and of course the metal oxidation that's on the surface. Just like that. Make sure you get all the way around. Again, you can see that on the towel. And you can already see the difference after polishing that out. And we haven't even done the finishing stage either. See how much better that looks? Pretty spectacular, the difference. I haven't even removed the tape because we aren't done just yet. So now that I finished that, I'm gonna go ahead and switch out my pad real quick. Remove that. Go ahead and take a nice light finishing polish just to bring out the brilliance in the metal. I'm gonna take a blue pad that I know is on its last leg. Apply my finishing polish, just like that. Dab it in. Work it in. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the tape real quick, just so you get that nice 50-50 split. Bam, look at that. Huge, huge difference. Big before and after. Simple process. Does not take too long, but look at the difference that made on the side pipe exhaust over here. And again, you could do this to your normal exhaust tips, mufflers, things of that nature, but this is such a standout point of the car. The side pipes, I want to make sure they just look phenomenal. So continue the process all the way through. Of course, make sure you're using your heavier cut wool pad with the heavy cut metal polish, and then go ahead and finish it off with the finishing polish. After we're done with it, we're going to go ahead next week, move on to that paint correction stage, and when we're coating, we're going to go ahead and apply some metal coating protection to the side pipes as well, along with the aluminum rims. And I almost forgot to mention, guys, how do you reach behind the exhaust? Well, all you got to do is take your towel, fold it lengthwise, just like so. Grab a little bit of your polish from there, apply it to the whole surface, all right? And then what you're gonna do is just gonna take that towel, push it through, grab from this side, and you're just gonna take that towel and go back and forth, just like that, section by section. All right. And you can see right there, removes all the oxidation from the back as well. Now to remove the residue, just gonna grab another fresh towel and do the same exact thing. Strip it through. And that's gonna remove all the residue that's left over. Bada bing, bada boom. Done. All right, guys, thank you for watching the whole video. If you got to this point, I really hope you enjoyed and learned something new. Again, just to recap, chips, I think, look a whole lot better. They're not as blotchy as they were before, and they're a lot more leveled as well. And of course, there's no excess amount of paint around the areas that are not chipped, and that is really key to make sure that your chip repair looks its best. Of course, we could have taken this chip repair to absolutely a whole nother level, all right? Is there any point of that? Not really, taking consideration the condition of the rest of the paint. My goal with this paint job really is just to mask as much of the damage that there is on the vehicle minus the cracking and the fracturing and the fiberglass and the paint. Can't really do too much about that besides body shop work. And then the next goal is to remove light, medium, deep scratches, and then also swirl marks, and really bring back the luster and shine of this paint from when it was repainted 5 years ago. So with that in mind, guys, future videos are going to be, of course, the full paint correction, ceramic coating, get everything protected on the vehicle with our coating line. I'm going to try to make a video for the engine bay detail and the interior detail as well. I just don't know if I'll have the time, just because this car has a show coming up in 2 weeks. So I have 1 weekend available to go ahead and at least do the correction and coating aspect for you. And then the interior and the engine bay, I might do in a future video after the fact, you know, when we have to re-up with an interior detail and engine bay detail as well. So bear with me, guys. Just keep in mind, we do run a business. I got 10 employees that I look after here, and over 30 to 40 cars a week that we run through. So Monday through Fridays are pretty much a no-go when it comes to making videos and podcasts and things like that. I really have to dedicate my weekend to it. This Saturday I had a bunch of meetings. We're working with our manufacturer for some new products and orders for film, and just getting everything prepped up for this upcoming year. Again, I really hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much, and hope to see you soon. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below.